Good morning. Good afternoon, rather. I'm Kevin Briscoe, Communications Manager for Vet Jobs and Military Spouse Jobs, the next generation in job placement and training for service members, veterans, and their families. So, welcome to the latest edition of Founders Friday, one of two channels, the other being the Trailblazers Network, where we highlight some of the bright lights within our great military community. Each third Friday of the month, our president and founder, Deb Kluppel, will have in-depth conversations with influencers who offer insights and resources to the military members and families that mean so much to us. Trailblazers Network events will continue to be on the second Wednesday of the month. And today's guest is Beth Conlin, Senior Program Manager of Military Spouse Programs for Amazon. So I'll kick it over to you now, Deb, to get the conversation started. Deb?
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much. As you know, MSCCN and Military Spouse Jobs, Vet Jobs, and Corporate America supports you. We vet organizations that we want to be a part of, and we also vet people because our reputation's on the line. And that's why we are truly delighted and genuinely and authentically glad and grateful to have Beth Conlin as the senior advisor to our programs. Beth, I'd like to have you join us now. Hi, Beth. Thank you so much. Beth, as an Army spouse, you experienced an overseas move in 2013 that forced you to quit your job. Is that correct?
Yes, that is still have some scar tissue over that. That is correct.
And you had this had the potential to disrupt your entire professional career and career development. But over the years, you turned that particular challenge into an opportunity to help other spouses. Tell us a little bit about that. Actually, I'd like to know a lot more about that.
Sure. So, looking back, had I thought that complete devastation, like professional disruption, had I known that it would lead me to where I am now, I don't think I would have taken it so hard. But prior to becoming a military spouse, I was a career-driven young professional. I wanted to be a CEO. I knew nothing about the military. And even in my early years as a military spouse, I still was just sort of cluelessly kind of along for this journey and fortunate that I was able to maintain somewhat of a professional lifestyle. When we moved overseas, the Status of Forces Agreement, for the viewers that might not know, the SOFA, as it's also commonly referred to, often dictates everything in your host country around service member conduct to family members, if they can or cannot come, how many vehicles you can bring. And a lot of them have caveats around employment. And the challenge with these agreements is that most of them were written when the permanent presence of the US military took place. For a lot of these countries, that was World War II. So these Status of Forces agreements were written in the 40s and 50s. Some of them, if we're lucky, were updated in the 70s, but for the most part, they haven't been updated since the advent of the internet. So there was no method for military spouses to work remote. So we moved to Germany. I was forced to quit my job, and I was completely devastated. I thought that there's absolutely no way that military families should be forced to go from two incomes to one, that someone in the family should have their career progression completely put on the back burner due to no fault of their own. So as most military spouses, I took that no and I took that challenge and I was like, oh, I don't think so. No. And so I talked to every attorney I could find about what is this SOFA? What is the Status of Force? Why can't I work? I called congressmen, I called senators. I was just standing on everyone's desk I could find in Germany trying to understand what happened. And it was sort of that desire to find a solution that has led me to where I am now. We did 3 years in Germany and then 2 years in South Korea. And during that time, I helped with a small startup. It was called Serving Talent, and it was a staffing agency aimed directly at this problem. It was putting military spouses front and center and connecting them directly to employment. We weren't hiding that we were military spouses. We were touting the benefits of spouses. And through all of the research from nonprofits like Military Spouse Jobs and Blue Star Families, we know that military spouse unemployment is a huge challenge. And the added layer of being overseas was something that I felt could be solvable. So from working for this small startup that I was helping stand up to now coming back to the States, I partnered with Blue Star Families nationally to say, hey, let's talk more about military spouse employment. You're a well-known entity. I'm just an angry Army spouse trying to solve problems. And instead, the CEO there asked me to come join the team rather than, she's like, why don't you just come run this program? And then from there, I was able to really leverage the diversity and the skills and the tenacity of the military spouse population to work with employers to help them understand how valuable we are to the workforce. And that's actually how I got this particular job. I met my boss at a networking event, and I was telling him how great military spouses were and all of the programs that nonprofits run to connect military spouses to employment and the value we bring to the business. And he just kind of stepped back and was like, I think I need you to apply for a job. And so now I'm at Amazon building programs internally around educating our hiring managers about the value of military spouses, and then making sure we've got the support around PCSing and deployments that are unique to military spouses. And then externally, I work with things like military spouse jobs to help connect more military spouses to employment at Amazon. So it's really a full circle moment, from that day in 2013 when I was just devastated to now being in a position to help other military spouses not suffer that same defeat.
Well, one of the reasons, Beth, we started Founders Friday and Trailblazers Network, and you fit into both categories. I know that you're not going to say this about yourself, so I am. I know for a fact that, let's set aside the fact that you have this passion to serve your fellow military spouses, and dare I say military community, because a lot of the same transitions we face, so does the military members, and I value that. You could have very easily gone to Amazon as something else other than this military spouse advocate, probably made more money. Just saying. But you took your fellow, and I know this is embarrassing you. I know you don't like to talk about yourself in this regard, but you're kind of a hero and kind of a rock star to those of us in the space who weren't able to get to corporations like Amazon, big corporations, to say, we need to change the narrative of what you think a military spouse is to a corporation. So I am not doing this in a pucker up manner to Amazon, but thank you, Amazon, for having the dignity and the support and the championship of Beth Conlin, who then can support thousands of military spouses I know you put into jobs there. So you're a recognized expert, Beth, this we all know. You participate in panel discussions and op-eds for major news outlets. You're extremely well-spoken and extremely well-read, extremely well-educated. As I said, you could have gone anywhere, made a lot more money, but you chose this passion, and I thank you from that. But I want to talk about diversity just for a moment. There's always a demand to create the business case for targeting and hiring underrepresented groups. How did you do that with military spouses? And Beth, do you think that we're an underserved group?
Well, yes and yes. So you kind of touched on it a little bit. You said it's about changing the narrative. And I think so much of introducing a new population, a new topic, a new concept to anyone is about understanding and educating the group, right? So in our case, military spouses, the military-civilian divide that exists currently is already a gaping wound. There are so many civilians who are disconnected from the military. More and more, our service members come from families of service members. So we're not expanding our reach into the civilian community. We are the 1% of the 1% that serve tend to come from a family that served. So not only is there a big divide between civilians and the military, there's an even larger divide between civilians and military spouses, which I don't want to say we're an underserved population, because there's an incredible amount of support for us, but we are a misunderstood population for sure. And knowing that, I wanted to educate our employers. So when I was helping with this startup serving talent, the number one thing I would hear from the two things I would hear from employers was, we don't need to work because the military provides us everything. and that there was this perception that we were all, first of all, female, and that we were some version of Leave It to Beaver. We were just the housewife at home caring for the kids, and work wasn't for us. And once I was able to just show that military spouses are more educated than non-military spouses, we come to the workforce with at least 6 years of leadership experience. We have industry experience, unlike service members, so we don't need that cultural competency, that time to blend in. We already know how to do it. We are inherently good at just hitting the ground running because that's how we've had to maintain our entire lives. We are 92% female. We are more racially diverse than the non-military spouse population. So by targeting this one population, you are getting an educated, professionally diverse, and demographically diverse audience all in one. And so for me, it was really about education to hiring managers, education to recruiters, showing the value add that we can bring. And at Amazon, what was so great is being able to say, these are the military spouses currently at Amazon, and being able to show hiring managers that we are level 1 to level 10, and that we are every single line of business, and that take us out and your gender diversity across the company drops by 2 percentage points.
2%.
So this one small group is contributing to the gender diversity at Amazon in a way that no other group of people can do. And it was just essentially using Amazon's own employees to say, don't you want more of these? And so from there, it's been a very well received. The hiring managers, they love to partner with me to help bring more military spouses into the company.
I'm really glad this is being recorded, Beth, because that 2%, that's a big number. Nobody talks about it, and that is our wow factor of this interview. I'm already going to invite you back more and more because there's so many questions in my head, but I have important questions also to ask, so I'm going to invite you back already. I'm going to have to invite you back. The number one factor that employers hire, and you know this, Beth, is you can teach a soft skill, you can teach a hard skill. I know soft skills more innate, I get that, but you can hone that. What you can't teach is trustworthiness. And military spouses bring such a trustworthiness to an employer. So thank you for that. That 2%, I'm going to hang on to that. Beth, our research also shows that for more than a decade, unemployment among military spouses is still more than 20%, and 60% are underemployed. Now, I'm going to digress just for a moment. I said, we want to change the narrative of the military spouse inside corporations because we're underemployed, but you said we're misunderstood. That I'm going to carry that with me too. We are truly sometimes very misunderstood. Have you uncovered similar numbers, and what do you think puts the military spouse in this unenviable position?
Yeah, those numbers are frustratingly similar to all the other research I've found. And this is all pre our current pandemic, right? Military spouse unemployment was over 20% for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
The reasons for that are multi-pronged, and I think a lot of it goes back to being just a misunderstood population. Up until recently, there really wasn't a mechanism to support a nomadic lifestyle like we have. With the popularity of remote work growing, I'm hoping to see that number decrease just by surely the access to having flexible employment. If this pandemic has showed us anything, it has humanized the workforce. And so employers are understanding more that it's not just about a job. They're seeing their employees, military spouse or otherwise, struggle with kids, struggle with childcare, struggle with if they typically traveled for work, not being able to travel. And they are needing to bend to that will and provide flexibility. And they're seeing the gratitude from employees. And my hope is that will continue a trend around more flexible opportunities, more remote opportunities, because that's inherently the largest challenge with military spouses is the movement that we have. And then the second largest challenge is our service members' daily work demands, keeping them away for so long. This pandemic has sort of unintentionally pulled both of those things to the forefront, unrelated to the military, that will allow us to sort of leverage this change toward flexibility and remote opportunities. So I think I'm hoping to see, when we all come out of this fog that we're in and go back to normal, I'm hoping to see a steep decline in those numbers.
Beth, your CEO has said that the military community thinks big and we have a bias for action. Wow. I'm thinking that you had a lot to do with that statement. Have you been able to harness those qualities to bring more military spouses into your employment pipeline?
Yeah, so Amazon operates on these 14 leadership principles, and the thinking big and bias for action are two of them. And before really knowing all of these nuances about Amazon, military spouses are inherently a perfect fit. You mentioned earlier the trustworthiness of an employee. One of the leadership principles is earn trust. And if you think about how frequently we relocate and need to immediately establish trust in our communities, because we need an emergency contact number, we need daycare, we need a dentist. So we immediately have to establish trust wherever we are. So we earn trust. We have a bias for action because if we don't hit the ground running, we're going to be moving again soon. So we know how to just make things happen from day one. So all of the leadership principles really are a great fit for military spouses. And one of the ways I've been able to leverage that is with partnerships with nonprofits, with military spouse jobs, with other nonprofits. Amazon comes to me a couple of weeks ago and they say, I need 210 bodies. This job just got approved. We just got our budget. I need 210 people and I need them by Wednesday. And I was like, okay, what skill set? And so the recruiters were panicked, and I said, I'm not worried about it. This military spouse community, we support one another more than any other community I've ever seen. And all it takes is a call out to a couple nonprofit leaders to say, hey, ping your network. I've got this immediate need. And before I know it, I think we had over 150 applicants in 45 minutes, and the recruiter had to close the posting because they were just so overwhelmed with the volume of applicants. And so being able to, like, then that is just such a feather in my cap at Amazon when I'm like, see, look at what military spouse has been doing. We bond together. We can meet your business needs immediately, even if they're absurd. So we've really leveraged sort of the personalities of the military spouse community to our benefit.
And what a business model, Beth. What a business situation. I mean, you get all of these job recs. You call a couple of the nonprofits who have the candidates, and you get qualified candidates. So many of them that you have to turn off the pipeline for that particular job, but you keep the pipeline for future jobs. That's a beautiful business model. Your Amazonians are pretty much essential workers, Beth, particularly as we live through this pandemic. What steps is Amazon taking to protect its employees during this public health crisis? And I ask that question because I know Amazon takes real direct steps and they're intense steps. I kind of want to brag about that. One of Amazon's main leadership principles is customer obsession. And I'm fortunate enough to work for a company that views its employees as its customers also. And so we attacked this from multiple angles. So for our workers in our fulfillment centers who were considered essential, we immediately revamped our supply chain so that we could get necessary equipment to those who need it. We immediately shipped hundreds of millions of dollars of protective gear to our fulfillment centers. We altered the way that you interact inside of the fulfillment center to create distance and space, increased cleaning. We provided additional pay. Not only did we provide additional hourly pay, but then we also just dished out one-time bonuses for those folks that were on the front line. So those are our frontline workers. And then throughout the company, we partnered with care.com to give our parents and those caring for the elder supplemental care to access when childcare was closed, when healthcare centers were closed. We partnered with local restaurants around the globe to help deliver food to essential workers. We've used our technology solutions to help. We partnered with the World Health Organization
to help them host an app. We're letting them host it for free at AWS that allows healthcare workers to help navigate the current pandemic that we're in. So I mean, really from frontline workers to corporate employees to our technology team, we have really kind of given all of our employees, our internal customers, just a big hug. We're here for you. We're going to give you what you need. And we've been continuing to pivot when we need to make sure that everyone's safe and cared for, and we're able to serve our customers.
And you know, Beth, because this is my show, I can take a liberty by saying something pretty bold here. I know you. I know you personally. I know you professionally. You are a part of our advisory board. I kind of report to you as a boss, in in a way. You wouldn't be at Amazon if they didn't treat military spouses well. And I understand they treat all of their customers well, all of their employees well, but you wouldn't be there if military spouses weren't cared about. I'd like to give you a minute or however long you want to take to tell spouses why working at Amazon is a good thing for their career.
So one conversation I had a couple of weeks ago that will, I think, stay with me forever. We're a big company. And sometimes that means that systems don't talk to each other and there's no unified way to do anything. And I was talking to someone inside the company. They are in the talent movement team. And I was like, ooh, talent movement, perfect. We move, we're talent, great. And so I had explained to her that, when we PCS, whether, however much notice we get or not, and we don't have control over the locations. And, we were having military spouses having a hard time finding ways to transfer. And in most cases, they were just being super scrappy and figuring it out. And she said to me, why are we making it so hard to work here? And I was like, well, I'm not saying, and I was like, no, I'm not saying it's hard to work here. But she truly was like, no, that's a problem. We are a global company. If military spouses are having a hard time transferring, that's a problem. And like, she's not a military spouse. She knows nothing about us. And she owned that. And now her and I are building an automated technology solution to make it easier for military spouses to transfer. So Amazon cares deeply about everyone they bring into the company. They care deeply about the customers that they serve. And it's every day it shows when you can identify a problem that affects a small portion of the company, they don't care how, to them, that's affecting the customer, and that's not okay. And not only that, we absolutely encourage diversity of thought. And so when you are PCSing, if you need to go from a program manager role to, managing a team, if you need to go from AWS to the ops side, they actually encourage that. They want diversity of thought. They don't necessarily want you to stay in the same job for 5 years. They prefer you to take your experiences and kind of sprinkle them around the company and help us grow. So it's a great way to expand your professional experiences, to grow your career, to build a global network, and to have really support the entire time.
Now, when you say support, I think of this coronavirus, and how in the world have you been able to continue to bring in quality people, in particular military spouses, during this virus?
We took a hard, immediate pivot. We were one of the first companies to cancel all travel. And we were one of the first companies to pull people out of the office. But at the same time, we were also growing. In particular, because the demand for delivery was up so much. And so we had to do everything virtual. All of our interviewing is now virtual. All of our onboarding is virtual. There were absolutely hiccups in the beginning. We had backlogs of getting people computers. We had issues. We have these VPN tokens that were delayed. So we definitely had some hiccups, but we also knew that in order to meet the needs of the business and to help support the current situation where we had thousands and thousands of people furloughed, we were like, hey, we can take you while you're on furlough. Come, we need bodies right now. And so being able to access a large talent pool immediately and then interact with them virtually was kind of our answer to being able to maintain the business. And the military spouse community is so used to doing things that are maybe a little unorthodox that we were like, sure, you need me to interview virtually on camera and work from home for a team I've never met, I'll figure it out. Great.
Well, and one personal thing, Beth, as a shopper, as a consumer, and all military spouses are, does Amazon really understand the comfort level we had? I'm going to choke up just a little bit, especially the older adults, the older military spouses who wouldn't go out in the beginning because we're kind of high risk. To have that Amazon package there, do they really understand, Beth, the comfort level that package meant, and at that front door at that time? Oh,
it actually so much so that Amazon started this daily accolades. So every day they blast out these emails that are statements like that from Amazon purchasers that are like, oh my God, seeing, knowing I didn't have to leave the house and I was getting my shipment. Because, when this pandemic happened, the screws got tightened at Amazon. Everybody's work capacity went way up and people were, working harder and then juggling more at home. And there was a high volume of stress. And the company didn't want everyone's hard work to go unnoticed. And so every day they share these funny stories or these fantastically heartwarming quotes, like you just said, with the company to show that you're touching people's lives with what you're doing. And we see that. And that's one of my favorite emails to get every day. It's just a really cool way, even though I don't deliver anything and I build programs. It's just cool to know that I'm a part of a company that is affecting people every day and then appreciates that and is showing their employees they appreciate that.
It meant more to my family than I could probably express on this video right now. The level of comfort when you're panicked and you can't go out and there's anxiety and you're running a business, and you need to just thank you, Amazon, the staples, the paper, thank you. I mean, I was running a business from home. I always have, but I was always able to get stuff. So thank you, Amazon, for bringing that office stuff to me. So Kevin, I think that you had one last, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful question, Kevin. Beth, what does the future look like for you at Amazon? Great question, Kevin. Thank you.
Oh, geez. Well, I'm still new here. And again, because Amazon, because Amazon does value, diversity of thought, I can openly talk to my boss about, what do I want to do next, maybe. And so I've openly told him, hey, listen, I want to solve spouse employment. And then once I solve that, I either want to go onto the policy team or I want to go over to AWS and a revenue generating side of the house. Like most military spouses, I have a really diverse background and I can plug into policy or sales. But I want to, I want to finish what I started first, get a solid foundation for military spouses to access employment at Amazon and make sure that we've got the internal support before moving on. So, I mean, really, my husband's still active duty. We've got however many more years we decide to play this game. And now that I'm with a company that supports that lifestyle, there's no end in sight for what could happen to Amazon. And it's incredibly, incredibly exciting as a military spouse to be able to say, I have a career. I'm not just job hopping. I get to have a career and be fulfilled and provide for my family and grow professionally. And there's that alone is enough to just say, I'm staying here forever. You're not getting rid of me. So hope you can find something for me to do.
Well, and I think that you hit on it. And Kevin, I know we need to close, but Beth, you and I have talked about spouses really don't want a job. They want a way to earn lifelong income. And in that environment is that career progression. And Amazon has seemed to nail that. Thank you, Beth. Back to you, Kevin.
Oh, sorry.
We got it.
Thank you so much, Beth. That was an awesome conversation with Deb. And always thank you, Deb. Beth, your passion for what you do truly shines through. And we appreciate that. I think that our stakeholders and our potential applicants, when they view this, they will see the value add that you bring to the military community. So thank you for that.
We didn't use one acronym, Kevin.
You never use acronyms.
Here's our yeah. We have this thing at our program that every time we use an acronym, we have to sip our beverage, and we didn't use one acronym.
I think we're going to probably have to interject some acronyms in there just so you can take your proverbial shot.
Well, thank you.
But thank you again, everyone. That's a wrap on this edition of Founders Friday. Thank you again to both Deb and Beth for this eye-opening conversation. Don't forget to join us on Friday, September 18th for the next edition of Founders Friday, where our guest is Tina Atherall, CEO of Psych Armor Institute. But also mark your calendar for September 9th. That'll be our next Trailblazers Network broadcast, where our guest will be our good friend Bonnie Carroll, and she's bringing along her suicide prevention and postvention team as we recognize Suicide Prevention Month in September. And we're also going to explore the impacts of COVID-19 in this pandemic era. So again, Beth, thank you. Thank you, Deb. And we will see you guys on the 18th.
Thank you.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.